Hi everyone, Sarah Joseph here. Welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday. We're going live, well, I'm going live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. So I hope you can join me. If you are catching this on replay, then pop replay into the comments below. And if you're joining me live, then send me a hello or a hi. Let me know you're here. Tonight's topic is getting kids to listen, or learning more about listening. I don't know. All right, so let me just get myself set up here so I can see what's happening on Facebook Live while I'm on Zoom recording this for the replay. There we go. Hi, Lori. Thanks for joining me. Okay, let's get started, shall we? I'm Sarah Joseph, and I empower people, that's parents, couples, and professionals, with tools that build connection, increase joy, and create ease while strengthening relationships. Tonight we are on our Talk to Me Tuesdays, and our topic is getting kids to listen. So while I'm getting started, please tag your friends so they can join us. And if you're catching us on replay, then pop replay into the comments. And if you're here live, then say hello and join the conversation. I'd love to hear from you. Each Tuesday night, I go live at 8 p.m. And talk about topics or answer questions that you've sent in. You direct the conversation, and I'd love for you to be part of the conversation during the live feed. So please add some comments below. Let me know how you're doing, what you think about what I'm saying, and if you have any other questions or topics that you would like me to talk about. So tonight we're going to talk about some tips and tools and some essential oils that you can use to increase listening in your household. Before we get in too far, I wanted to just talk about, before we got to tips, I guess, I wanted to talk about what my kids aren't listening could mean. Because sometimes it doesn't mean that they're not listening, that they're not hearing you. Sometimes when I tease this apart with parents, what they mean is that they're not following instructions, or they're not obeying, or sometimes it means they're ignoring me. But sometimes it just has to do with communication, right? Sometimes it has to do with a power struggle of some sort, right? So I just want to ask you to think about this. When you say your child isn't listening, what do you actually mean? Do you mean that they're ignoring you? Or do you mean that they're not following your direction or jumping to do what you've asked them to do? Do you mean that they're saying no to your requests? Do you mean that they are, I don't know, not obeying the rules that you've set out? What is it that you mean by they are not listening? Okay. Sometimes it has to do with power struggles. And sometimes it has to do with the way that we talk to our kids, the way that we ask them to listen. And sometimes it's just their need for independence, right? To continue doing what they're doing, playing and having fun. and you know, our priorities aren't their priorities. So let's think about what it might feel like for a child to be engaged in play, engaged in something really fun in the middle of a TV show or a video game, when somebody tells them, now it's time to stop that. Now it's time to stop having fun. Now it's time to stop in the middle of your TV show or video game. How would that feel for you as an adult? Right? We don't like to be interrupted when we're having fun, and neither do kids. So sometimes the resistance is simply, it's not their priority. Sometimes it's, I'm in the middle of this and I really need to know how it ends. Sometimes it's, you can't tell me what to do, right? But yeah, I think that the first tip is to try to think about what it's like to be interrupted ourselves, right? And kids will often interrupt us a lot, right? And how annoying does that feel to us when we're trying to be in a conversation with another adult, when we're on the phone, when we're in the middle of sending an email or responding to somebody else's questions, and then our kids are just interrupting, right? They might turn to us and say, "You're not listening to me." Right, I know. I always flip it around to us, don't I? But it's important, I think, that we see situations not only from the adult or the parenting perspective, but also from the kid's perspective, and why resistance might be happening, right? It gives us some ideas about what's going on in their little minds, and for them, and it might give us a little more compassion about what is maybe happening, and it may give us some ideas about how to look at the situation a bit differently or approach the request a bit differently, right? If we want the TV to go off, maybe we wait for a commercial, if that happens anymore. Guess that doesn't happen so much on Netflix, right? But maybe there's a more appropriate way to end TV than stopping in the middle of a favorite show or a really good part in a video game, right? By maybe giving a warning, right? Like there's 5 minutes left, and having a countdown or something. I don't know. Anyways, just thinking about their perspective of it sometimes helps us with our own approach. That was my point. Big ramble to get to that point. So then the next point that I wanted to make about getting our kids to listen is that if it's a resistance thing to doing what we're asking them to do, I want you to think about how you're requesting them to do what you're asking them to do. Okay. So firstly, when we all have this lovely thing in our brains that, and I'm not sure who coined this phrase, but it is the resistance reflex. So just like a reflex in your arm or in your knee, when somebody tells us what to do, our brains go, "Nope, you're not the boss of me. You can't boss me around." And so we get this immediate resistance, right? And that happens to children and adults alike. Nobody likes to be bossed. So when we're trying to get our kids to listen and to follow through on something that we're requesting from them, so if we're asking them to brush their teeth or to stop something or to help us with dishes, pick up after themselves, get ready for school, whatever it is, right? When you demand it or tell them what to do, what happens is you get that little bit of a reflex of resistance happening. So in order to engage and get more cooperation from them in those situations, it's better to ask than tell. So asking questions like, what do you need to do to be ready for bed? Or what do you need to do to get your teeth clean? What do you need to pack to be ready for the bus? Right? So not only do those questions avert the reflex, the resistance reflex, but it also gets kids feeling like they're capable and they're more connected to us, and they need to think about what the answer is. And that's a good brain trick as well, because when we give the brain a question, it tries to find the answer. So let me just see here what the comments are. Yeah, Lori said they usually set a warning before we're leaving, right? The pool or a party. So there's expectations. That's great. And, you know, when we set that time limit or give a warning of like, time's almost up or we got 5 more minutes, one of the things that we can use for really young kids is giving like real life time, right? Because they don't have a watch. They don't usually tell time. So we can do something like, we have time for one more push on the swing, one more underdog, one more slide down the slide, or one more jump in the pool, right? So they understand what's actually happening. So a real life time warning is helpful. And then also just to, as an adult, to mind your time, right? So often we say, okay, 2 more minutes, but then we take like 10 or 15 minutes because we get into a conversation with somebody else and we get distracted doing something, and then it takes longer. And so kids don't really understand what those time limits are, right? They already don't really understand what time limits are. So giving them real life scenarios of, we have time for one more lap around the pool before we go, or go jump, go jump into the pool one more time with your friend, and then it's time to swim out, right? Another tool that we can use to help kids listen is to tell them what to do instead of what not to do. Now, I know I just told you that asking questions is better than telling. And I'm going to add to that telling is better than saying no or saying what not to do. Okay? So again, remember the resistance reflex. This is very much the same. When we tell kids or adults what not to do, the way the brain works is that it has to figure out what it's doing before it can figure out what not to do. So for instance, you tell your child not to stand on the table. You say, Paul, don't stand on the table. The first thing that Paul thinks of is himself standing on the table. And then he has to figure out how to get that image out of his head and how to rework it so he's not standing on the table. So it's very confusing to the mind. It takes the brain a while to do that work. And if you don't trust me, try this at home. Clear your mind. And I want you to think of blue skies. Just think of blue skies and the beach and the sun. And now don't think of pink elephants. Don't put a pink elephant on the beach. Don't put a pink elephant in the sky. Don't put a pink elephant in the water. Just think of blue skies. Now, how did that go for you? Right? Did you see a pink elephant anywhere? Like 95% of you probably saw pink elephants everywhere I told you not to, right? And that's simply because that's how the mind works. So when we want our children to do something, it's much better to stop doing something. It's much better to tell them in the positive what we want them to be doing. So instead of, Paul, don't stand on the table, we say, Paul, put 2 feet on the floor. Okay. And now again, you could say, Paul, where do feet go? Right? And then he'd think, where do feet go? Feet go on the floor, right? But just telling them what to do instead of what not to do is going to help them listen and cooperate a lot quicker. And it's going to make you feel better as well. Because when you're saying no all the time, and when you're saying don't all the time, it really decreases your mood. It makes you feel kind of grumpy and kind of frustrated because you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over and over and over, right? So if you can tell them what to do, they're more likely to listen, and it feels better in your mood. Just the way you say your tone of voice changes because you're saying something positive instead of something negative, right? Because you're not enforcing, instead you're directing, and that feels different. So an oil that you could be using if you're having power struggles, if you feel like there's that resistance happening, is cypress. Cypress is a beautiful oil for helping with letting go of that resistance, helping with increasing cooperation and ease, flexibility of getting kids to do stuff. It's really nice. It's helpful for parents too, for stepping out of power struggles. Because remember, power struggles can only last as long as you're standing in them. Once you let go of your side of the power struggle usually ends. Okay, so try cypress, and you can use that by diffusing it, or you can use it on the bottoms of your feet and the bottoms of your children's feet. If you don't have access to the bottoms of the feet, the back of the neck works great as well for accessing the brain real quickly. Okay, so for those of you joining in late, I'm Sarah Joseph, and we're talking about listening and getting kids to listen. If you're just hopping on now, I encourage you to go back to the beginning and watch the replay. But if you have any questions or comments, please add some comments below. Take a friend, let them know we're here, let them know what we're doing. We've talked about a few tips already, and I'm going to keep going with some more tips. What did we cover so far? We covered asking questions instead of telling. We covered using the what to do instead of what not to do. And we talked about giving warnings of time, right? Fourth idea is to get down to your child's level. So when we're standing up and our child is sitting down or standing up, there's usually a big height difference, right? And so when we're talking down to kids, what happens is they're looking up at our nostrils, and it can be quite intimidating. But also it's harder to get somebody's attention when you're standing over them. When you crouch down to their sight, their eye level, then you can make eye contact, and then you know they're paying attention to you. Sometimes it's helpful to put a hand on a shoulder or to hold a hand. Sometimes, physical connection is sometimes helpful just to make sure that you get that eye contact. You know that they're paying attention to you. You know that they're engaged in what you're saying and not just continuing with what they're doing. Now, with that said, not all kids enjoy eye contact. Some might have a hard time with it. So you know your child best, right? And again, some kids might not like physical contact. You touching them might startle them. So again, you know your kids best and the kids that you're working with best. So pay attention, learn their cues, right? And do what works for them. Usually getting down to their level is going to work for everyone because it feels less intimidating. Okay. So get down to their level. All right. So what's another tip I have here? Try to change your no's to yeses. So when we're saying no all the time, kids say no back to us more often, right? And so if you're trying to ask them to do things for you and you're getting a no response, check yourself. How often are you saying no, right? If you're asking them to do something for you and they're saying, what are you going to do for me? Check yourself. How often are you saying, what are you going to do for me to your kids? Remember that we teach people how to treat us, and kids are watching us all the time and they're listening to us, and a lot of the things that they say they get from us. A lot of the attitude that they have, they get from us because they've picked it up in our tone of voice. They've watched us and how we relate to other people, how we relate to them. So if we want respect, we need to give respect. If we want to be listened to, we need to listen to them, right? And kids are really more apt to listen when they feel listened to. So it's just notice how often you're interrupting them, right? How often are you defending yourself, your position, lecturing, giving commands, trying to talk over them, not letting them get a word in edgewise, and just think about how you can set a good example for what listening looks like and feels like. The other thing that I do a lot when I work with classrooms is we do a list. We sit down and we talk about what does listening feel like and what does it sound like, what does it look like, so that kids have a clear understanding of what the expectation is in the classroom. But that's totally something that we can do at home too, right? We can sit down with our kids and we can say, what, what does it feel like when you're trying to talk to a friend and they're looking away and they're on their phone and they're not paying attention to you, right? We can practice we can ask them what it sounds like, right? When somebody is listening, they're usually engaged and they're saying yes, and they're saying, they might be asking questions. There's usually the head bob, right? And what does it look like when somebody's not paying attention to you, when somebody's not listening to you, right? And so we can practice, and we can talk about those things up front, so we can set up some expectations, and we can also take notice when our kids are doing a good job and mention that to them. Okay. We can also, as parents, practice our listening skills without interrupting by listening and picking up specifics about what they're telling us, and then repeating back. So focusing on what's being said instead of how we're going to respond to it. If we want our kids to come to us with the big things, then we need to show them that we can pay attention to the little things, right? So learning how to be still and kind of quiet our minds and be able to listen to our kids and what they're telling us so that they really feel connected and listened to is going to make a big difference in the years to come with them. It's a really big relationship tool that is going to strengthen that connection and that your relationship with them, so that they feel safe to come to you with bigger things. Some of the oils that you could use to do this is a lemon. Lemon is a great one for helping us mentally be present in the moment, helping us concentrate on what's being said and focus. And then sandalwood helps calm our minds, to help us become still, inviting us to be silent on the inside so that we can listen more intently. It's a great one for kind of, so many people listen with the intention of responding, right? So I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm totally thinking about what I'm going to say to you next, which isn't being fully present. And so sandalwood is a great oil to use in order to stop that process, to kind of put a pause on your brain from thinking about what needs to come next, and allowing us to just be still and really listen and hear what's being said. Lavender is another great one for communication. It really helps us feel heard and helps us express ourselves. So when you're working with your child about listening, that's a great oil to be diffusing as well. So again, you can use the lemon and the sandalwood as topically, applying them diluted to the back of your neck or the back of your child's neck, or you can diffuse a drop of each of those together in your diffuser. I feel like there's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Yes. So make sure that you are shortening your speech, so kids will tune out. They have small attention spans, plain and simple. If they're not interested in what you're saying, you've lost them. So try to shorten down what point you're trying to make. Don't ramble like I do on these calls. I'm a bad example. Just make it short and sweet, right? Clear, concise. That's what you need to practice to hold your children's attention. And then the other thing is we want to make sure that they understand us. So especially if we're giving instructions and that they need to follow through on, or if we're setting up a new agreement or new rules or guidelines, we need to make sure that they understand them. So you could ask for their comprehension by asking them to tell you what will happen if, or like if you're giving a consequence, or or what you had asked, what they need to do next. Just ask and find out that they heard you, that they understood you, so that you can clarify anything that didn't work. Okay. All right. So, any questions? Let me look at my stream here. Let me see. Is there a blend that has cypress in it? I don't have that oil. Let me think. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that maybe Balance does. But if not, then I will look that up because that is a great question. Cypress is a great oil, though. If you do not have that in your collection, you need to get it because it is fantastic for the power struggles. Emotionally, it's like the go with the flow kind of oil. It's also wonderful for sleep and calming. Yeah, I mean, cypress, it's great for circulation. It's good for so many things, man. And I can't read this because it's all in French or some other language. I do not know. Cypress is, I don't think cypress is in the Balance blend like I thought it was. Yeah, I'll have to look that up for you. Sorry, I don't have the answer right off the top of my head. If anybody else on the call knows if what blend cypress is in, we would love to hear from you. Share that below in the comments. I will look it up and add it to the comments after I'm off this call. Does anybody else have any comments or questions about listening or what we've talked about tonight about the oils? Again, the oils that I was talking about were cypress, lavender, lemon, and sandalwood. So good ones for helping to communicate, for helping to step out of power struggles, good ones for calming the chatter in your head so you can listen better, and lemon's great for focusing. Oh, Denise says it's in the deep blue blend. Thank you, Denise. Appreciate that. Cypress is in deep blue, she says. Okay. So yeah, when we're talking about listening, some final thoughts maybe, is that to just remember that not listening should be kind of a wake-up call for us parents or adults, right? It's usually done, sometimes it's done out of defiance or inattention or a part to get your attention or to express a need for power. But all of those reasons are reasons for us to connect in, right? As annoying as it can be for us, no matter how old our children are, you know, toddlers to teenagers, when they don't listen, it's annoying for us. And it's frustrating, right? And so but no matter how old they are, it is a wake-up call for us. They're saying, hey, something you're saying or the way you're saying it is not working for me, or I need something from you, right? So it's a bit of a wake-up call. It's a bit of a cue for us to check in. What's going on for my child? What do they need? How is that need not being met through what I'm doing right now? And you know, power struggles are somewhat normal, but we can definitely work around them, right? When kids feel seen and heard, then they do listen. They listen well, and they are much more likely to cooperate and to be helpful. So make sure that you're noticing when your kids are listening. Take notice of that and comment on it. When things aren't working, then sometimes all it has to be is simply taking notice too, right? I notice that you're having a hard time hearing me. Is there something I could do different that would make it easier for you to hear my request for you to go brush your teeth? Or, right? I often have parents tell me that their kids don't listen unless they're yelling. And my reply to this is that we've trained them that way, right? We've trained them that way. And so if we want to untrain them, then we can. We just need to change the way that we get serious about what we're saying. So, you know, often what parents say is that my kids don't listen until I scream. And my response is that we've trained them that way. And the way that we train them that way is that we are subtle. We don't, we make a request, and then we make a request again, and then we make another request. And then we're telling them to do things, right? We're reminding them, but we're not getting their attention. We're not getting down to their eye level and making eye contact with them, or getting their attention by putting a hand on their shoulder, right? We're not using the questions. We're telling instead of asking, right? We're not engaging them. And so when they don't respond to the ways that aren't working, what we do is we raise our voices and we yell because we're out of frustration, right? And then they pay attention because, they're like, oh, that shocked me. I better pay attention now, right? But there's better ways to ask for their attention. That's what I'm saying. Ways that you don't feel frustrated, and ways where they don't feel shocked and scared. So try some of the new tips that I gave you today. Use your oils, okay? And try getting down to your child's eye level, asking for what you need to get them engaged and thinking about what needs to be done, by telling them what to do instead of telling them what not to do. And what else did I say? Listening to them, not interrupting. Right? There was lots of good tips in there. I can't even remember them all, so we'll have to go back and do the replay. But I'll do a recap in my blog tomorrow, so I'll have it all written out for you to check on. If you haven't checked on my blog yet, it's sarahjoseph.ca is my website. My blog is there, and I always upload these videos to my YouTube channel, which is Connect with Sarah Joseph. So you can catch the replay on the blog, on my YouTube channel, or here in our Parenting Essentials group. I will be going live again next Tuesday at 8 p.m. And if you have any topics that you would like me to consider talking about, or if you have a question, please do send that to me. You can add it to the comments below. You could send me a private message if you'd like, or an email. I love hearing from you, so let me know if these Tuesday night things, what am I even saying? If the Talk to Me Tuesday night lives are working for you, and if they're not, how I can make them work for you, because these Tuesday nights are really all about you. I want to be servicing you guys and helping out and trying to strengthen your relationships. So use your oils, try the tips, let me know if they work, and let me know how I can help strengthen your relationships. All right. I will see you next Tuesday night. Thank you very much for joining me. Take care, everyone.